Okay, I think we are recording, Toni.
Okay, good.
How are you today?
I am strong today. I'm feeling good.
Good.
Yeah.
And before we get into what I hope to just be a fabulous conversation, I want to do just a little bit of housekeeping. So, as you know, I'm Megan, last name is Holmes, and I own the Needlepoint Clubhouse in St. Louis, Missouri. And together with my partner in crime, Melissa McLeod, who owns the Wool and the Floss outside of Detroit, Michigan, we have started this joint effort to bring a video podcast to needlepoint enthusiasts. And believe it or not, we've had some success and we've got some traction. And I can't even say how many we've done yet, but because I haven't counted. But we have just found that people are really enjoying hearing from designers and other people in the industry. And so we were delighted that you accepted our invitation, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity to talk to you today. So,
Thank you.
so Toni Randall
Yes.
of Whimsy and Grace.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So Toni, where are you coming to us from?
I am at a very precious friend's house in Rogue River, Oregon.
Rogue.
Because last Tuesday, just a week ago, my house was completely destroyed in the Almeda fire. And she's given me a safe place to land. My goodness, I had a pedicure one morning in her house. This morning I got a cup of coffee in bed. And so I'm being hugged and embraced, and not only by my host, but the entire needlepoint community has overwhelmed me with care and concern and donations and offering to stitch models again. And it's like I have these moments of grief, and then in floods this love that covers it all. And yeah, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to rebuild. I have no inventory, no models, not one paintbrush. I mean, I left with barely time to get my dog and myself to the car. It was very frightening. But tomorrow I'm moving in with my daughter, and she just had a huge window put in my room that will stare out through an apple tree right onto Grizzly Peak. So I'm going to be inspired to just start painting. And thank you for asking.
Yeah, so we chatted just really quickly before we started recording, and what I said to you is that Melissa and I have created a list longer than my body of people that we want to talk to and people that we're curious about. And I guess I will say, unfortunately, but fortunately, your recent circumstance caused us to really pull you to the top of the list. And so that's, of course, why we reached out, and we wanted to be respectful of your current situation, because none of us can understand the post-traumatic stress that you must be feeling after a complete devastation like you've been through. But as you alluded to, this community has really rallied around you, and it touches me too. And I think what's especially neat about it is that there are so many young stitchers who may not even know who Toni Randall is, or how long you've been in the industry, or really your body of work, and they knew your name and they knew the situation, and they just all sort of jumped up and said, how can I help? And there are also dear longtime friends of yours in the industry who have jumped in and wanted to help too. So what we're hoping to do today is to get to know not just the Toni after the tragedy, but to get to know you and your body of work and all those things. So you're coming from us from a small town in Oregon,
Southern Oregon.
And is that where you've spent most of your life?
No, I grew up in Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Connecticut.
Stop it. I didn't know we had that in common. So I'm in Missouri, and I lived in Michigan for a while. So I get you. So,
and then I went to college in New Hampshire and Colorado.
Okay.
I lived in Boulder for 39 years.
Oh, that's a wonderful city.
Beautiful.
Wow. Yes.
And then after my first surgery, and I was having a lot of trouble walking, and my son invited me to live near his family in Florida,
Okay.
which I love being near them, 4 grandchildren. It was precious, but Florida is a hard place for a mountain woman.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I had a daughter and 2 grandchildren in Oregon. So I came here 8 years ago.
Wow.
And this precious little valley has become my home. So
So how far away are you from where you were living?
I'm 30 minutes away, but it took me over 6 hours to get here with the fire chasing me.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. And
Wow.
my daughter was on a phone looking at a map living in California, and she kept saying, "Mom, I'll direct you." I had no idea where the roads were. The smoke was so heavy I couldn't see.
Mm.
We looked later, the roads I'd been on were destroyed by fire like a half an hour after I'd been on them.
Oh my God.
It was really, it was a scary night. But anyway, tomorrow I move in with my daughter, so that'll be back in Ashland.
So
And
that's where you moved originally to be with her, is that right?
yes,
That's what
yeah,
you were saying. Great.
right.
And so you grew up in all these states, sounds like Midwest states, but where were you when you sort of began to hone I read that you were about 7 years old when you started.
My mother taught me to stitch when I was 7 years old.
So I don't know how she did it because I have a 7-year-old and she has no patience for it.
Well, it may not be her thing,
Could
but
be.
she may come to it with you. But my grandmother also was a needle pointer.
Hmm.
And
So
I
where were
think
you
so
living?
often, I don't think I would have known all the things I know about my grandmother unless we had sat together stitching.
Oh,
It
that's.
is such a precious way to share stories
Mhm.
and to have that quiet, uninterrupted time. I have such a heart. How can I get generations sitting together to create and to make beauty? Because I really think beauty is what we need in the world, and beauty is healing, and to be able to create it together with generations. I've always, how can I get grandmothers and mothers and grandchildren sitting together to work on a project? It's
Well, one
so on
way
my heart.
One way I think you're doing that is with the very classic, beautiful traditional designs that you create that are sort of stayed. They're not going anywhere. They're beautiful. But go back really quick. I'm gonna
Yeah.
bring you back around. Which is,
Okay.
so you were with mom and grandma in what state? I'm just curious. Were you
Well, Indiana, when I was young, when I was 9, we moved to Illinois.
okay?
So, and then I taught my children and grandchildren at 7 to stitch.
Really?
Uh-huh.
So do you remember what you used as your first tool to stitch them? Was it just some blank canvas, or can you give us
It
any?
was blank canvas, but I would draw little shapes on it. I'd draw a circle or a square or a letter like mom or I love you, and a little fancy border stitch that they could do. And it was always on 13 count.
Sure, sure. So that begs the question. So when you were learning from your grandmother and your mother, you're just a couple years older than me, so that's been quite a while. Um,
Mhm.
and so were you using wool and just
Oh, absolutely. What
and
else
were you
did
doing
we
just
have?
basic stitches, just
Uh-huh.
the tent stitch?
Now, I will tell you, I have a 58-year-old daughter.
Well,
So it was back when we had pattern and that was about it.
I won't do the math, but
Okay.
yeah. So, and were you doing any Victorian cross stitch? Was it European inspired at all, or
I
mostly?
think I maybe taught them over 1, over 2, over 1, over 2. And we
Gotcha.
didn't name the stitches. We just kind of made a little rhythm pattern
Pattern.
poem
Sure,
to
sure.
go. Yeah.
So that process has definitely changed these days too,
Mhm.
because over 1 over 2, or we're talking like a mosaic stitch or something.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Very good. So you mentioned that you went to college in New Hampshire.
Mhm.
What did you study? Where did you go to school?
I studied English Lit and child
Okay.
psychology.
Okay. Having nothing to do with art.
Nothing to do with art.
Well, I should say the hand art, handwork
Yeah.
arts.
But always stitching was in my life. And I can look at a piece that I stitched and I think, oh, that was on that trip, or I did that when I was sitting with a friend in a hospital, or
Hmm.
you know, it's
It traveled along with you.
They do.
So then you left college, or you said you went to did you get a higher degree then, or you just switched school?
I was married in my senior year and quit before my last semester.
Oh,
Too bad.
girl.
Yes, I know. And became a mom and very involved in the community and lots of volunteer work, but always there was that stitching. It was like, even when the children were young, it was like I would get up an hour early just to have that time in the morning to,
Mm.
my website says needlepoint is an art that soothes the soul, quiets the mind, and expands the heart.
I read that. It's beautiful. And it's
And I think about that. And so I would take those morning hours just for myself to stitch. And starting at about in my 20s, I wanted to start just stitching my own designs.
okay.
So I was visiting my son in Florida one time, and I went into a shop to get some threads. And the shop owner said, "Oh, who's that designer?" I had taken one of my Fred and Ginger, my little gingerbread ornaments, and I said, "Well, I designed that." She said, "You could sell those."
Ooh.
So I said, "Really?" So was newly divorced, and I went into friends of mine in Denver that we had beautiful shops in Denver. And they said yes, and they introduced me to painters and stitchers, and I started at my first market in 1999 in Phoenix, Arizona, a spring market, and I had 5 gingerbread people there, and that was all I had as a new designer.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm rather new to this industry, but I don't think of you as a gingerbread lady. I think of you of the florals and the Napoleonic bees so that's,
Well, you need to meet Fred and Ginger.
I know them. I do know them. I've seen them on your site,
Yeah.
but that's just not the first thing I think of when I think
Yeah.
of
No, that was my first market. Second market, I had my Napoleon Bee, and now we've put that pattern on everything we
Mm,
make.
and it's stunning.
Ornaments, belts, eyeglass cases, everything. And now
So
I have over.
back up just a second. So you were at market in 1999. You said you brought the gingerbread.
Mhm.
So the gingerbread were just inspired by you wanted to do some holiday stitching, and so you said I like.
Oh, I made them for all my friends.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's why I had a certain one guy has on a plaid shirt that was a
Uh-huh.
friend couple, and they're always couples. So I had a friend, a guy always wore a plaid shirt, so I did that. And then I had someone who always wore a vest, so I did a couple like that. So
I love that. So
yeah.
then, what inspired the bee?
I was taking my granddaughter to one of my favorite shops in Niwot that had beautiful French ribbons and buttons and teddy bears.
Mm.
And so Lyric was looking at teddy bears, and I fell in love with the Renaissance ribbon Napoleon Bee design.
Mm-hmm.
I said to the owner, "Oh, is there any way you can let me get in touch with that ribbon company and see if I can use their colors and their bee?" So she got me in touch with the American distributor for Renaissance ribbon,
Wow.
and she was coming to town, and my shop owner friend said, "Come on out, we'll all have lunch." And she was there, and I told her what I wanted to do. I said, "I want to copy your bee and use your colors." And she said, "Toni, do it." So that's how the Napoleon Bee came to be. And then it was just pillows, but now we've put it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you love color and you love beauty, you just see things in places that maybe other people don't.
Right.
It's like I have a friend that I'll be with her for a day, and I come home and I think, if I'd been with anybody else, I wouldn't have laughed so much.
Yes, that's
Because
right.
she's my laughing friend, but you develop the habit of just seeing beauty wherever you are.
Oh, I love that. That's so true. So then I think I can fairly say from there that a lot of the other designs were inspired by nature. Am I,
Yes.
because the florals are gorgeous, the damasks, I think that's what you probably call them. Um, so where does it go from there? So you have the bee, and
Well, now I have 1,000 designs. I have over
Wow.
1,000
I was going
designs.
to ask you that. I haven't counted. I was on the site, but I haven't counted
Yeah.
over 1,000 designs. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it appears that you sort of took a theme and then said, well, wait a minute. This is a beautiful eyeglass case. This would also be a beautiful pillow, needle case, scissor case.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like like the yellow echinacea. I
Mhm.
love that black and
Mhm.
yellow. So that's on little purses and big tote bags and eyeglass cases and scissor cases. And if it's appropriate, I like to put it on what we make.
I love the story though about the ribbon and the inspiration. It's so true that if you're observant, that artful things will or things will inspire your artful side, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, and like the two damask patterns and the bee patterns are two color patterns, which is unusual, I think, for needlepoint.
I think you're
So,
right, but there's something really special about them.
but because they're two colors, we'll paint them in any custom color your stitcher wants. So
Ah,
if they need an
okay.
accent
Yeah.
piece or a purse in a special color, because it's only two colors, we can do that easily.
Wow. So what, talk about your sort of nuts and bolts process. So you see the bee and you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to use this ribbon. Did you just get a piece of canvas in front of yourself and then begin to sort of paint, or are you a sketcher, or how does that kind of
You
work?
know, when I try to sketch something, I think, oh my gosh, that'll never go. But if I sit down with canvas
Okay.
and a paintbrush, it's like somehow the discipline of the grid
Yes.
gives me the freedom to create a pattern on there. So I always paint right on the canvas. I'm not a sketcher.
That's kind of amazing. I think that there are, in my experience now, just interviewing people, there's either, oh, I always sketch, or, you know, the young designers are using their iPad to draw things
Oh,
out.
I know I don't know how to do that.
Well, but I just mean that there's either the sketchers or there's those who of you who amaze me, which because you're able to see in that grid pattern. And I think it's sometimes very hard for people, you know, when we say, you know, well, of course you're not going to get a perfect circle because it's a square pattern. Oh, really? It is? And it's like,
Yes.
it is.
You're making a circle out of squares, so it's an illusion of a circle.
You're exactly right. And leaving out a stitch will completely change the arch. And it's, yes, I find that fascinating. And thank you for sharing that process, because I think that's really neat. So then are you able to take that bee once you've painted it and say, okay, I want this on 13 and 18 and in these sizes, or do you have to paint each one over and over again in the different size? And how, like, sort of, how does that work? I've always been curious about that.
With the bee, I do have to get the finished size in mind and then recreate the bee to fit that size.
So you've painted a lot of bees in your life.
I have. But, you know, I'm a real border person.
Oh, yes, I can tell.
And so the most intricate part of the design is getting the border pattern so that the corners will turn. And
Ah,
if I start
sure.
with the design first, I think I can't quite do all the lines of the border. I may have to add a line in order to make the corner work. So I might have to, it's interesting.
No
There's,
kidding. That's why I'm
I,
asking you about it.
yeah, I will count and count and count a dozen times to make sure I've got the border correct. And I love that.
So do you do that when you're stitching too? Do you sort of count to figure out possibly a stitch, or do you just kind of dive in?
Oh, I think we all count a lot. There's a lot of math in needlepoint.
It's true.
Yeah, I think we do. We count a lot.
There are some people though who just use a stitch that it doesn't really necessarily require stitching or counting, you know, just tent stitches or skip tent or T-stitch or, you know,
Yeah.
but there are others who really enjoy the math, you know, and
Well, if it's something like the old Algerian eye or something, I mean, you've got to, if that has to end at the corner, you
exactly.
definitely have to count that.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So, so I asked you about your process, and so really, you haven't had any, or have you gone back and gotten any sort of artistic training.
No, and I probably should do that.
Well, I think you've been pretty successful without it, so I don't think you need it. But
I've always loved color and pattern. I mean, I just will look at a tree or look at somebody's drapes hanging on the wall and I'll see patterns in them, so
yes.
kind of fun.
So you mentioned, I had a note here because I really appreciated the piece on your site that talks about encouraging new stitchers and bringing new people in. And you mentioned that you taught your children on 13 count mesh and kind of simple designs, but do you have any other, I guess, advice or suggestions for those of us? Because frankly, it's not a concern, but it's on my heart that we should continue to press and teach. And do you have any thoughts or advice for those of us who are really trying to continue to encourage new stitchers?
Well, if they're in your home, that's one thing. And I always
Sure.
think I love literature and I love to read. And one of the gifts I wanted to give my children was a love of literature.
Mm.
And the best way to do that is to have them see you loving to read. And
Mhm.
so I think I remember I would sit and stitch, and when my girls were just toddlers, they'd come up and they'd want to, they'd put their hands on my leg and look up at me and just watch what I was doing. So I think sharing your joy of it is something that they grow up realizing this is a good thing.
Yeah, you're right.
And if it's for others, that's my heart too, Megan. I don't know. I go to the Orthodox Church, and I asked if I could design something called bishop's rugs.
Oh,
So
wow.
I've designed 5 of them, and they're 28-inch circles with intricate patterns, and I have now permission to introduce this project to our parish and teach families to stitch together.
Oh, how fantastic.
So we'll be passing these rugs from family to family, and they'll maybe each keep them for a month at a time. And I'll be there to help them teach how to stitch.
So kind of
And
a joint family effort. That is
yeah,
neat.
so I think when there's a group that you love, that maybe could we make a chair cover for, I don't know. We just have to learn to be more creative and think about how to pull people in and get the generations working together.
I think you're right. And I think what a lot of the younger designers are trying to do, and I think it's smart, is bring in fresh, spunky designs.
Bright colors and
It's fun, but what I hear you saying, which I think is something that we should all really think about, is to try to create a joint effort. And right now that's very hard because of
right.
being.
Yeah, we had to put our project on hold with all the teaching.
But what a great idea, maybe teaching mothers in a classroom so that they could go home and do something for the teacher or for the classroom or something. I think that's a really neat idea that we should all.
Well, I've thought about that. I mean, going to a preschool or, a school and just saying, would you like me to come at a PTA meeting? Can I, or whatever they are now, can I teach the moms, and moms could go home and, would this be a program that they'd like to have someone come in and do? And it would bring new stitchers into your shops too.
I love that. I'll share with you really quickly that, in fact, I did talk to, I'm trying to pat myself on the back here. Can you see my quite long enough?
Yeah.
But I did have a conversation with the PTO president at our school. It was going to be a Zoom meeting for the teachers because they were very worried at the beginning of school, the amount of stress that the teachers would be feeling. And the amount of overwhelming technology and such. And so we did talk about doing a Zoom group and teaching people how to stitch. And then I was going to kind of make the supplies. And it was on hold because of all of the preparations that were needed. It was actually going to add a layer of, we didn't want to add any layer of stress. But the truth is, it's a fantastic idea. I love it. And I think there's applications for it in our lives that we should think about at churches and schools and all kinds of family groups. So I think that's a really, really special. Thank you for sharing that. I wasn't expecting that for you to say that. And I love that. I really love that.
Well, I've always thought these big churches, they always trim their trees with stars.
Oh.
So why don't you go in and say, I will teach your families to stitch a star, and they can then donate it to the church.
Oh,
This
right.
star was made by this family, and you can teach the moms and the daughters. I just think there's an outlet, and there's a type of ornament or a white chrismon or something that they
Love
use
that.
anyway. And these would last. They're not styrofoam that will be thrown away, in January.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. So I think you're segueing me exactly into where I was
Oh,
at here, which a couple of my questions here will be your favorite design and your least favorite. That's one of my favorite questions to ask. And you asked me before this whether or not we could share the screen because, of course, in your situation, unfortunately, you don't have any of your things. So what we're going to do really quick for the viewers is I think what Toni has queued up for me is to share with me some of her favorite designs, her least favorite designs, bestseller, worst seller is always my favorite. I don't know if you were ready for that one or not, but so go ahead, Toni, and share your screen with us and let's see how this
I
goes.
was taught how to do this today.
Well, you know what? You helped teach me something because I hadn't learned how to do this with a guest. So this is perfect. All right.
All right, there we are.
Good. So you just were talking about the star, and this is one of, I think, I don't know whether you were the first to do this, but I certainly think of you when I think of a treetop with this 3-dimension. Go
Mhm.
ahead and share this design with us.
So now I name most of my canvases in collections like this are named after my grandchildren, my children, and my dogs.
I love that.
And then when I've done more than that, I start naming them after my friends
Oh,
or favorite towns or places I've been. So this is Terry, my first daughter's tree topper. And I love to do a geometric in the gusset if I've got a floral pattern on the star, or reverse it. And then I think we have another one. Then this is 3, and these we've done the tree toppers in 6-inch and 10-inch.
oh, nice. Okay.
And we put hundreds of Swarovski crystals on them.
Oof.
And they just, when you pick them up, they twinkle right at you.
So Toni, I should know this, but does the canvas come, is it 3 canvases? It's the front, the back, and the gusset, or is the gusset in 2 parts?
They're all separate. So you can buy the front of the canvas separately, the gusset comes separately, and the crystals are optional.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and I've had
I didn't know
shops
that part.
tell me that they've got stitchers that are buying 2 fronts, so they have a front and back, and the gusset, and they're getting 3 to 5 different star shapes or sizes. And instead of a tree topper, they're grouping them on mantles or tables
Oh,
with candles and pine
beautiful.
boughs. Wouldn't
So
that
a
be pretty with
stand-up, that would
candlelight?
be, yeah, that's a gorgeous idea. I
I
love,
thought, wouldn't it be fun to give a dinner party and have a little 6-inch tree topper star as a gift at every? I used to do things like that.
oh gosh, I
So
know.
this is Lisa's star, and it's got the pine bough and star gusset. And then this is a close-up of some of the stitches. So you can see in some of the big snowflakes, you can sometimes see where we put the crystal. But these are just tent stitches on the snowflakes, and then any background stitch you want to use.
Wow. Now,
So,
mm,
oh,
so would you say that the stars are your favorite of your designs? Is that kind of where we were going here?
no, I wouldn't say that. I don't know how
No.
to choose a favorite. Well, I can tell you I'm not going to show you an unfavorite, because if I don't like it, I don't put it in the collection.
Okay.
So I don't have an unfavorite one.
So are these your best sellers, the stars?
They are I think I got more known with the stars.
Gotcha.
And then this is some of my best friends, because we all love our cats and dogs.
Love
So
that.
that collection is called My Best Friend. And we put the dog paw and stockings and the little ornaments and
Darling.
all that. Oh, here's another star. I had that out of order. That's named after my granddaughter. Now, one of my favorite collections is my scissor and needle cases.
Okay.
And if I can have a minute to tell you why they
Please.
became. Years ago, I stitched a scissor case for a very dear friend, Jenny, and I needle pointed her name in the scissor case and gave it to her on her birthday. And several years after that, she passed of breast cancer.
Mm.
Years later, her grown son, just out of the blue, called me one day and he said, Toni, I don't know if you know this, but when our daughter was born, we named her Virginia after Mom. And on Virginia's 16th birthday, we gave her the scissor case you had made for Mom. And he said, Virginia burst into tears and said, Daddy, every time I sat with my grandma, that scissor case was on her lap, and I will treasure this forever.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, these things hold memories and they last longer than we do. And so, and I think every woman needs a scissor case with one of your fancy scissors in. I mean, even if they don't needlepoint, they sew on a button or hem a skirt.
Sure.
So
Oh,
I have made these for all my friends, and I love my scissor cases. And we have, I think, 50 or 60 different patterns for our scissor and needle cases.
wow. That's a really special story. And
There we put
there's
the
your
bee.
bee.
We put the bee on it. There's a yellow echinacea.
I love it.
And I have the tassels made in France, and they come in. So I advise the stitchers to always pull their threads to match the tassel, because sometimes the paint colors come in different. This one's called Williamsburg. And then we did the 3-egg omelets.
No, I did. I knew you had a sense of humor when I saw that on your site.
Yeah. So I thought, what's one Easter egg? So we've done them all in sets of 3. And they come on 13 and 18 count canvas.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is named after a granddaughter, my granddaughter Lyric. This is named after my daughter Mara.
Beautiful.
And then the pumpkins.
Love the pumpkins. And I love the real stems on those pumpkins. That's very cool.
Those are real pumpkin stems. And I've had more. We have now 28 fancy stitch pumpkins.
Wow.
So now this is named after my little dog Tabitha. We're going to do several white pumpkins.
Why not? That's really in right now. That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the blue, that periwinkle is gorgeous.
So this is one of the canvases I recently finished painting.
Okay.
I did get a picture of that. That's what the 6-section ones look like when they become 3D. So this will be another white one, but all in different oranges and burgundies.
I love that. So would you say new designs are these? So were you planning to go to market it back in March? And
actually, the pumpkins were introduced at the last Orlando show a year ago, March.
Sure. Okay.
And yes, I have a new collection that I hope will be ready for the October virtual show.
Well, I wanted to ask you that. You're so tech savvy now, so you're hoping to be part of that. I'm not sure if our viewers know, but a couple of women who are both, women in the industry and have created this awesome outlet for us to have a virtual show. So I'm really excited about it. Because I feel like it's going to be a great way for us to kind of have a little bit of normalcy. So I bet you feel the same way.
Lucky for me, I'll be with my daughter, who is very tech savvy.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
So here's the damask tote bag. And that's been a real good seller. And then, I think we have 80 different purses.
Beautiful.
And then the little reflections have been good. Did I go too fast?
No, you're fine. I'm just not sure if you're going to get to stockings or not, but that damask pattern I saw finished on, are you familiar with Needlepoint Nation?
And she beaded the whole
thing. The entire,
oh.
I was about to...
May I send her a dozen roses and breakfast in bed?
No kidding. Oh. That was absolutely stunning.
Oh.
Stunning.
Yeah.
The design was stunning, but the beads were something to behold. That's for sure.
Yes, and she did it in pink. So and then other people wanted it in pink.
Great.
And I thought, well, couldn't you stitch the red one but use pink thread? But no, we're getting it painted in pink. So
good for you.
Yeah, we will do that. We want our stitchers to be really happy.
Well, Toni, I think they are. Your things are just absolutely delightful.
So these are our little reflection ornaments. There's like 80 reflections. Music collection has been very popular.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. As I observe your collection, the damasks and the florals and then there's music, and then I saw like little tiny bits of a couple of sports teams.
Yes.
So, do you sing? Do you play? Do you just love music? Is there inspiration?
Oh, I've always loved music. When I was in high school and college, I used to jazz sing in New York and Boston.
Oh, stop it.
And I will tell you, my clarinet player was Benny Goodman's understudy.
No way.
And I had such an in to backstage and music concerts. And do you want me to tell you my favorite jazz story?
I do, but while you do it, I kind of want your face back on the screen because I would like to see the sparkle in your eye when you're telling me.
So
is there anything else?
Let me see. I think we're done. Oh, there's the bee.
Oh, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
And that's it. So let me stop screen sharing.
Yes, because I fear that perhaps we won't be able. There you go. I see your face when you tell us this great story coming up. So
and I was thinking about that with my day-to-day event in life. But so I used to go to all these jazz concerts, and my trumpet and vibes player was Pat Williams, who did a lot of movie scores, and he led the orchestra for Frank Sinatra after Nelson Riddle retired. I mean, these are the old jazz greats, and I was there. I used to sit on the piano in a strapless gown and sing all these old ballads from the 50s. And anyway, one night we went to a special thing after this bar closed, and here's Thelonious Monk. You have to be a jazz lover to know who Thelonious Monk is.
I don't know that name. I'm sorry.
An incredible, far-out jazz pianist.
Okay.
And he's got his group, and they're all playing this one number, 3 a.m, and they all take their 8-bar solo, and it comes time for Thelonious Monk's solo, and he sits with his hands about 8 inches above the keyboard and doesn't play one note. And after the 8 bars were over, everybody went wild applauding. And I turned to my piano player, Fred, and I said, he didn't play anything. And Fred looked at me and said, can you imagine the thoughts he had? So I just want to tell all our stitching friends that I don't have any canvases to lift up and show you, and I don't have a paintbrush, but can you imagine the thoughts I have?
Oh, God.
To get back to the painting table. Once I get a painting table and start painting again.
Well, I don't know what to say. You are just, the fact that you're here and you're smiling and you've got these amazing stories to tell is just something, and you are absolutely something. And I think I can safely say, on behalf of all of our stitcher friends and our designer friends and our shop friends, virtual hugs, lady, virtual hugs. And we're here to help you. And, I checked your GoFundMe page. I think it was yesterday. You know that you've raised nearly $60,000 on that GoFundMe page. And
now, let me say, if people want to go to that, there are so many people in this valley that are hurting, and we've had 2,300 homes destroyed. And so we're asking today that people would redirect from our site, and we've linked it with, there was a woman who came by. I had no time to get out, and a gal happened to be driving by who knew me. She ran in and said, Toni, I'll get your dog to the car. Get out right now. She lost her home.
Oh,
so
gosh.
We're directing people from our page to hers.
Okay.
And my family has said, Mom, do you know these people? I don't think I know. I bet 95% of the people I don't know. And so I want to say to the Needlepoint community, you are what will make this world a better place. You're bringing love and beauty, and your generosity and your real way of helping people in need is what will change the world and it has certainly supported me. And I want you all to keep helping. If you can do it through my site to get to someone else who needs help, please do that. It's this is an incredible industry to be a part of. It is such a privilege. And my heart, every night I go to bed and I think, Lord, how can I pay back? So I'm
You know what
going
you can do?
to.
You can get back to that painting table, lady. That's what you can do. I don't know what to say. I think it's beautiful what you've said, which is this is a great community, and you know, I'm a little
Better than any of us knew. I mean, this has been such an outpouring and coming together, and we all need that now.
well. And what I think I said a little bit earlier too is that, I'll just repeat myself, which is your designs precede you. People may have had a design in their collection, may have gotten one from eBay, may have done whatever, and I think when people heard the words Whimsy and Grace, lost everything. It was like, oh my gosh, what can I do? And at least, I felt that way. I know a lot of people did. So I appreciate you. So I actually have your GoFundMe link in the bio of my Instagram right now. But what I'd like to do when we're through here is I'd like to get the new link from you so that I can update that. And I'll also share that with other people. And we'll put that in the notes for this interview so that people can
Thank you.
friend, because it takes a special person to stop and not think about themselves in a crisis like that to help you. And we're just so happy that you made it out safely.
I am too. Thank you.
So, but I will also say that aside from, excuse me, this is a lot for me to take too. This is just a lot. It's overwhelming. So I can't imagine what you're feeling. But I will say that there's a group of shop owners, and I'm sure you know this, that we're doing a virtual trunk show.
No.
Yeah, so there's a group of us, and I wish I could list all of them, but we will in the notes, who are doing a virtual trunk show. And we're not taking any proceeds. We're just going to take orders, and we're going to pass that along to Toni. And our hope is that you're able to kind of collect a good order. So because my guess is that you're working to manage inventory and what am I going to do and what am I going to order. And so I think the intention is not only to support you and but to help you with your ordering so that we can all sort of, I don't know, help you get back on your feet, girl, because this is just and I also just feel like what you said is true, that there's a lot of people suffering right now in a lot of different ways. And so this is a tangible way that we can help. And anyway, I don't know. I'm a little speechless right now. I don't know what to say to you other than
I don't,
girl.
I'm an English lit major and I don't have the words
I know
to express my depth of gratitude and the extent of gracious generosity that has come. And thank you, everybody. And let's just keep stitching,
And as you said earlier, stitch through the moments and stitch and have your people around you, your kids, whoever. And I think you're right that this is just such a beautiful, lasting treasure, that the time that we're using to stitch together, even though now it looks different than when you were sitting with your mom and your grandma, we might be on Zoom, we might be on a FaceTime call, but it's a way for us to connect. And maybe even in a more beautiful way, people from across the country couldn't stitch together. So I know there's a lot of young women doing those stitch groups. And so.
It seems like the world is a little quieter place when we're stitching and creating, and that we need that.
And a little more beautiful because you're in it, lady. Let me just, this has been a delight. So we will put all the information. Is there anything else? Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm kind of pressing on because you've kind of touched me so much with your beautiful sentiment to the people who are helping you out. But is there anything we haven't talked about that you wish we had? Did you have any notes written down there that before we sign off? I like I said, we will be sure to articulate all of the ways that we can help you and your friends on the notes for the podcast. But
I think I rambled. I hope I answered the questions that you might have had.
You're wonderful. This has just been a real true delight. And I know that people will really enjoy hearing all the stories behind the beautiful designs. So thank you. Thank you. And keep designing and keep us updated on your status. And I'm just so grateful that you have beautiful family and friends nearby that can house you and as you said earlier, send their husbands out to buy you clothes and all the things that you need.
You know, said to my daughter yesterday, I was ready to downsize again, but this is over. This is more than I had planned on.
Yeah.
But I remember gardening, that after you prune, you get a good harvest. So I said to my son, I have been severely pruned and I had better get ready for a really abundant harvest.
Isn't that the truth? That is just the truth. I love that. So,
And I love to share the harvest. So there will be designs coming again.
Toni, I want to ask you one last thing. Do you have
Yes.
a piece of needlepoint to be stitching on right now?
Everything burned up.
I know. I'm wondering if you could say what if you had the chance to stitch something right now, what could we get to you that you would like to be stitching on? Your own designs, someone else's designs? Is
Oh,
something
if I even just had a piece of blank canvas and could feel the threads, can I think about that? Because I
Yes.
would
I'm
love
putting you on
that.
the spot. You absolutely can.
I
But
would love to that.
okay, let's think about it.
Stitching it's like breathing. It's part of every day. It's part of life. And I have missed it this week.
I bet you have. I bet you have. All right.
Thank
Well, we're going to
you.
get you hooked up, lady. Well, thank you. This has been delightful. And I hate to go right back to business, but anyone who's watching, please stay tuned for information about what's going on with Toni's life, what's going on with the Pointing It Out podcast. And don't forget to hit subscribe, because the more subscribers we get, the more ways we can just reach out to wonderful people like Toni. So Toni, I am grateful that you spent time with me today, and I look forward to hearing more about your
Megan, this was such fun. Thank you
Good.
for letting me be on with you. I'm
You're-
really privileged.
You're most welcome. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.